Okay, with that in mind, let's start thinking about the things he says. First, he says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. He refers to chapter 11 as this great cloud, group, congregation of witnesses. Now, he's calling to mind, and he will use throughout this text, language from the Greek games. The Olympics have been going on. I haven't watched them, but maybe some of you have, and these Olympics have been around for thousands of years. The writer of Hebrew is using the language of the games. Several words in here are very unique and specific words that the author uses that are specific to the games. That's not the only time these words are used. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, a spectacle to the world. Spectacle is a word specific to the Greek games Paul used. 1 Corinthians 9, several verses there use several words specific to the Greek games. That you so run that you may obtain this prize. Those words are very specific to the Greek games. 1 Corinthians 15 and 32, I fought with beasts at Ephesus. The word fought is a very specific word describing the boxing matches that they had in the Greek games. Galatians 2 in verse 2, had not run in vain or without purpose. The word run is a very specific word, treko, word used to describe the Greek games. Galatians 5 and 7, you were running well. Same word, same concept. Philippians 3:13, I press on toward the goal or the finish line, a very specific word that is specific to the Greek games. You wouldn't use that word in the first century unless you were talking about the Greek games. Colossians 2 and 18, let no one disqualify you. Disqualify is a word specific to one of the sports they had. It was used if you, like today, some of the folks I understand have used drugs they shouldn't use. Some kinds of whatever enhancement drugs that they're not supposed to use, and they are therefore disqualified. This is the word that they would have used in the first century to describe that. 2 Timothy 4 verse 7, I have finished the race. The Apostle Paul describes his life as if it were a Greek game. You get the point. All of these quotes are in letters written to Greek churches from Paul, giving a comparison to Christianity to the sport of the day, the Greek games. This is why I conclude if Paul lived today, he would be a football fan. I have no doubts. You cannot read his writings and conclude otherwise. He loved the Greek games. He used the imagery of the Greek games all the time to explain to us what it's like running the Christian race, living the Christian life. Now, here's the thing. Chapter 11 of Hebrews is written to Hebrew people about Hebrew heroes. And all of a sudden, he's going to use the Greek games metaphor to make a point to them. Now, that would be like showing up and, I don't know, trying to explain farming terminology to a Wall Street banker. It's just like, what? Why would you use Greek game analogy to explain something and think about for a moment the Hebrew letter. Whoever this letter was intended for were people that knew the book. They knew the old book because he's throwing out quotes from the Old Testament just like they were bullets. Boom, boom, boom. Psalms and Isaiah and boom, boom, boom. He's quoting the Old Testament and going through concepts that the most studied student of the Old Testament might struggle with. We've looked at some of those complicated concepts. You cannot read the book of Hebrews and draw any other conclusion that the book was written to people who very much knew the Old Covenant. And now all of a sudden he's going to use an analogy of the Greek games. Let me offer a theory to you. When Stephen stood up in Acts 6 and preached to the Hellenists in the synagogues in Jerusalem, they killed him. It was very sad. They stoned him. I think Stephen was successful. I believe a lot of those thousands of Jews in Jerusalem were Hellenists that were converted. Greek-speaking priests. Remember the priests, the people that headed up the priests in these days were the Sadducees, and they were very political in their thinking, and they would have appointed priests from a lot of different backgrounds. I think what you've got in Jerusalem are a lot of Greek-speaking Jews who know both the heroes of faith, Hebrews 11, the Hebrew heroes, but they also know the Greek games because that's the culture they came from. They came from there to move to Jerusalem. When people came to the Passover from Turkey and from Greece and from Rome and other places, they came there with that Greek background. They would come there worshiping those Greek or Hellenist synagogues, and there would be people there that they could communicate with. There were a lot of synagogues around Jerusalem, and a lot of them were Greek-speaking synagogues. So that's just a theory I offer to you about the book of Hebrews. Otherwise, this piece of text doesn't make a lot of sense, because everything else in the book is focused towards Hebrew people. And now we're going to use this analogy for the Greek games. So, having said that, that is the picture he's painting. Here's the picture. You and I are on the field of play. That's where we are in this analogy. We're out there in that green area. We're playing the sport. Up in the stands are filled with audience. That's what he's describing. We are surrounded by a huge audience, and they're watching us play. You've seen this on TV. If you've watched a sporting event, you know what it looks like. A stadium filled with people. You and I are on the field of play. That's where we are in this analogy. All of these people up in the stands know that the object of their faith is us. That's what they've put their confidence in. That's what they've put their hope in. And if we don't survive, if we don't prevail, that was the word I was trying to think of. If we don't prevail, Abraham wasted his time. Noah built the ark in vain, and Jephthah sacrificed his daughter for nothing. If we don't prevail. You see, this audience that's watching this game is filled with these heroes of faith. They're in the stands and they're rooting for you. They're rooting for us so that we might prevail the day. That's the analogy that the author is setting up here for us. Chapter 11, written to the Hebrew heroes. Chapter 12, now let's apply it to the Greek games. Whoever got this letter had to understand both. That's kind of what I was trying to say. All right. So with that in mind, let's just play this game. Here we are. We're playing, well, I like football. We'll just make it football. Matt's the quarterback. Okay? I'm probably like a lineman. You don't have to be very smart to be a lineman. So, well, I don't know. You got to be smart to play any of it nowadays. But we're out there on the field, and the crowd is watching us. Thanks for joining us on Beginning the Word. I hope as you have begun today in the Word of God, you will live out today in the Word.